Recording. So, hello everyone. Welcome to Kapi Olani Community College. It's really cool, in my opinion, I guess, to have Tony and Sean here with us today. I think what folks may not realize, a lot of our students who are entering the college arena, um, English is their second language, and perhaps a lot of them, Hawaii may not be their original home, but now it is because of college. But maybe that comes with a different set of challenges, perhaps issues. But here we have Tony and Sean, who are going to share the kind of services they provide. But take it away, guys.
Oh, well, thanks, Sheldon. I appreciate the opportunity. Just have a few slides. I just want to talk generally about what the ESL program is and how it's constructed, maybe give counselors and some others some idea about what we do. And then feel free to jump in with questions, and then maybe we'll move it over to Sean. So let's see if I can share my screen here. Here we go. All right. Does that look good?
Looks great.
Okay. So as Sheldon mentioned, I'm Tony Silva. I'm the ESL Program Coordinator. I'm a little bit new at the job, so trying to learn a little bit from all the faculty here. So I just want to share a little bit of information about the ESL program, just starting with just some numbers, like ESL program by the numbers, so to speak. We have about 250 students in any given semester. That's a combination of immigrant students, we have some US citizens, and international students. It fluctuates between spring and fall, and then depending on the year as well, but more or less around 250 students. The program has been in existence for over 30 years. It was started many years ago by Frank Noji, who recently retired. And we've got a lot of experience. We've been doing this for quite a while, and Sean, I think, will talk a little bit about that as well. Currently, we have 13 instructors. Everyone has a master's degree in ESL, second language acquisition, second language studies, TESOL, applied linguistics, or something like that. And then we basically have what I call 3+1 levels of courses, which I will explain in a minute. And then we have really just one main goal. And the goal is to accelerate language development for English language learners. We want to be able to give them access to the college and help them be successful in any of the programs that the college offers. So no matter what program student is planning on following, if they're an English language learner, we have some classes that they might benefit from. Our program is what we call content-based, and that means that each course at each level has a specific theme. And we find that the theme helps to tie things together for students and helps them recycle ideas and vocabulary as we progress through the semester, talking about the same theme. So they kind of become experts in that theme. And our goal is not to have them learn about health or about the environment or about wellness. It's basically just a vehicle for language. Our goal is language development. So depending on the level and the semester, these are the different themes that we currently have. We're also an integrated skills program. What that means is that we don't have separate writing class, a separate grammar class, a separate listening and speaking class. Everything is rolled into one long class. So listening, speaking, reading, and writing, all grammar study and vocabulary study all occur in the same class at every level. We also have a strong emphasis on writing. So we cover all the skills, as I said before, listening, speaking, reading, grammar, etc. But we use all of those skills as a basis to jump off of for writing. There are a few reasons for that. One is that what we found when we survey students when they first entered ESL classes and asked them, what is the most difficult of these skills, listening, speaking, reading, writing. But writing always rises to the top. Almost every student puts writing in the top 1 or 2. And so that shows that that's the stuff that they feel that they need. The second reason we focus on writing is that almost 75% of faculty at KCC use writing for determining final grades in some way, shape, or form, whether through a report or a research paper, portfolios, essay tests, etc. So writing is really, really important in college. And a third reason is that it's a skill that employers want. Written communication is a really important skill for the job market as well. So we cover all of the areas, but everything sort of leads to writing in the
So,
end.
so I have a question. I guess it would be two. Like, what would you say is the average age of the students enrolled in the ESL classes?
Yeah,
Like,
we
just
do have that
ballpark it.
data, but off the top of my head,
Yeah,
it's early 20s
early
is
20s.
average. We do
I
have a lot
think.
of students who come from high school, but then
Mhm.
we have others that are working adults as
Yeah.
well.
And so for Alfie and I, we have a lot of partnerships with the various high schools, but also the community school for adults. What would you, I mean, you mentioned writing. Like, what would you say? I don't know. Like, I guess for teachers, like, how would you want students to prepare as they transition from where they're at now into college?
Wow. That's a great question, Sheldon.
Sorry.
No, no. Um, yeah, let's see.
Like, I once sat through this, granted, it's totally different. Like, I sat through this ACT prep workshop, and the guy just really emphasized reading a lot because he felt like reading translates into some degree of improved writing skills. And so, in working with students whose English is their second language, is there something they could be doing, maybe as a supplement to whatever instructions that they're having at the moment, to be somewhat college ready?
Yeah, reading is very useful. The more that students read, the more that they're recycling the language, both the grammar and vocabulary.
Mm-hmm.
One way that we sometimes advise students is to just look into something that they're interested in. Like if
Mm-hmm.
someone is interested in baseball,
Mm,
they would benefit from reading text in English about baseball because they have a basic understanding of what's going on. They'll be able to fill in some of the blanks that they might not understand specifically
mm-hmm.
because they know a lot about baseball, and
Yeah.
it would be enjoyable, right? They'd want to do it
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to taking just a college textbook or a reading textbook out and trying to learn to read. It's more kind of like a reading to learn to a certain extent. Like I want to read to get information, and students can begin to develop a little more expertise in a specific area.
Mm-hmm.
It's not specifically academic focused, but they are, as I said, they're getting the structure of the language,
Mm.
like a river flowing through
Yeah.
their consciousness.
Yeah.
And other things are, for example, following a news story. That's also useful. Like a newspaper, you can access pretty much any newspaper online,
Mm-hmm.
and then just follow a particular news story over the course of a few days or a week. And again, you're getting sort of a recycling of the vocabulary and the grammar structures that are used to talk about that particular topic.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's something that you're interested in, then you're motivated to read it. Or if it's a really important current event, you might be interested in learning
Mm.
what's going on. So yeah, reading is really beneficial. And we do a lot of reading in our program. But one thing that we do focus on, which is, I'll just go to the next slide, not to change the question, but it's because it's
Yeah.
relevant,
Yeah.
is this idea of
Ah.
feedback. Yeah, a focus on
Yep.
feedback. So we have a theme-based integrated skills program focused on writing, but the core of what we do is giving students feedback.
Mm.
So if a student's reading, they may know if they're understanding or not understanding. That's a type of feedback. But when students are producing output of some kind, either writing sentences, paragraphs, or papers, they have something static and physical on which we can give them feedback, and they can take and they can study in depth, right? And that's the part that we call rehearse. So our faculty are feedback machines and provide a lot of feedback to students. But just the feedback alone is not enough. Students need to rehearse, which we define as using the feedback to make changes or to improve their writing. We do the same thing if they're giving presentations or they're speaking with pronunciation, etc. We give them feedback.
Mm-hmm.
But again, the writing is static, so it's in one form. When a student gives a presentation, a 5-minute presentation, it's hard to remember what the first minute was like when you're in the 5th minute for the
Yeah.
student. And when a student has a physical piece of paper with all of their writing on it with feedback, we found that's a better vehicle for developing language. So I think, I know high school and other teachers are overwhelmed with students and students' work. But if there was one area where they might focus, it would be to try to look at giving students as much feedback as possible.
So Tony, in terms of we talked about writing being like their main your main focus in terms of helping to improve. What are the most common? I'm not sure how to phrase this question, but what in terms of their writing, what is that? What do they need the most work on in terms of their writing? Is it like the subject verb agreement? Like what have you seen as common things for students with that?
Great question. Yeah, there are various issues, and again, so much depends on the student's background and their first language, etc., about the types of errors that they'll make. Our goal is to get students' writing to be good enough for their content classes. So we do give a lot of grammar feedback, and we give them feedback on things that we know that they'll be able to address right away, and also things that might be a little bit more challenging. But yeah, I think there are a lot of issues that's around the verbs. I mean, subject-verb agreement is one thing. Verb tense is often another thing. Verb tense can be expressed very differently in different languages. English changes the verb so that it shows the verb tense, but other languages might not change the verb. They may use other words. Like for some languages, if you say yesterday, everybody knows what time it is, right? You don't have to change the verb, but in English, if you say yesterday, you still need to have to change the verb to past tense, right? Like yesterday I went, not yesterday I go. So those kind of things can trip students up. And then a little bit around the nouns too, like countable and uncountable nouns is an issue that students sometimes have trouble with. Again, because English is a language that marks the nouns with an S at the end for plural, and many languages don't do that. So sometimes those technical aspects get lost in the desire to communicate the message. And that's also why writing is kind of important, because students have a little more time to think as they're doing the writing. When they're speaking, there's a lot of processing going on, and those small things like subject-verb agreement and plural nouns, past tense, for example, they can get lost. The meaning is conveyed, but in an academic setting, I think the expectation is a little bit higher, especially in writing.
So I would have conversations in the past with both Frank and Sean about this generation called 1.5. And so that came to mind when I saw the feedback and rehearse. I know for the ESL classes, it's pretty intense. Like it's either like 4 days a week, so many hours a day. So in that classroom, they're gaining the kind of attention that can focus on this cycle. When they go back home, it seems like that's a whole different ball game. And so what kind of advice would you give a student knowing that when they go home, they're speaking their host language? And so there's not a whole lot of feedback and rehearse at home. It almost seems like it's going back to their native language. And I totally get it. But does that create additional challenges in trying to advance through the ESOL classes?
Yeah, it can. I mean, the more time that a student is in the English language environment, the better and the faster they'll learn. I mean, speaking a first language at home is a necessity, and even for a lot of students, if they're working, they may be working in a place where their first language is spoken, at least for part of the time.
Right.
So one of the things that can be useful is just looking for English in your environment. Like if you're going to the supermarket, there's English everywhere.
Yeah.
Just try to pay attention to that. On the bus, there's English everywhere. Those are things that students can kind of incorporate in their daily lives. We do have a number of other on-campus opportunities for students to get involved in activities where English language is spoken. I mean, there are plenty of student organizations or student clubs on campus
Right.
that students might be interested in. We have an international cafe, which meets once a month, which allows language learners and native speakers to get together and just talk about different things or do sort of language exchange. Those are on-campus opportunities that students may be able to avail themselves of depending on their schedules, etc.
Yeah.
It can be difficult to go home with a first language is spoken and then try to speak to everyone in English while they're using whatever first language it might be. It's kind of, that's kind of awkward.
Yep.
So you mentioned our classes, and that's sort of what I want to get into next, which is just some of the basics of how the program is structured. So we have, I guess what we would call pre-college courses. So these are beginning, intermediate, and advanced level English courses. They help prepare students for college. And then we have a regular college class, ESL 100, which is the equivalent of English 100, freshman composition class, and it substitutes for English 100 across the college, more or less. And students can enter our program at any of these levels. We have some students that enter at the beginning level, some that enter into the intermediate level, some that enter into the advanced level, and then we have some that enter directly into the college level. They don't need any further prep, they're all ready for college. And the way we determine that is, of course, through a placement test. We use the AccuPlacer ESL reading skills test. So when a student comes to KCC and they want to take their math and English placement tests, they ask for the ESL reading test, and they take the ESL reading test, and then they do a writing sample on a general topic, and that gives us a little bit more information, again, about the student's level. So because our program is focused on writing, we want to have that writing sample. It helps us to put the student in the right class. So a lot of students may, for whatever reason, they may not do so well on the reading skills test. But if their writing is clear and grammar is more or less clear, then we can put them in a little bit higher level than the reading test might indicate. The writing sample is kind of important for us.
So, a question that comes up a lot is, what are the differences between ESL 100 and English 100?
Yes, indeed. That question does come up a lot. Students ask that question quite a bit.
Yeah.
So the courses have the same basic outcome. I mean, they have the exact same student learning outcomes as they're listed in the catalog. So the goal is exactly the same. The ESL course has an additional outcome, which is related to language and language learning. So, the ESL 100, it's a composition class for foremost. So it's focused on writing. The ESL piece is that it's taught by an ESL teacher who has been trained to work with ESL students, as opposed to English 100, which is taught by an English trained teacher who is ready to work with native speaking students. Also, we focus a little bit more on the type of assignments that students might do at college. I mean, in English 100, there's a lot of exploratory, finding your voice kind of thing. Whereas in ESL 100, we kind of more focused on the typical forms of writing that students might need to do in their college classes, because they may not be so familiar with the structure of a particular type of academic writing, like a persuasive paper or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's a little more focused that way. And then in the ESL class, we do cover language items like subject verb agreement, verb tense, those things are all kind of reviewed, and you don't really get that in the English 100. And then the type of feedback that we would give the student as well. We would give student feedback on their language as well as their writing organization, whereas you wouldn't really get that so much in English 100.
So really catered to students as you're sharing with English as their second language.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know that choice is kind of up to the student when they get to that point. You know, after they exit the pre-college ESL program, they can go to English 100 if that's what they want to do. But most of our students, well, no, I don't know if it's most. We have 5 or 6 sections of ESL 100 per semester.
Yeah.
So that's about 100, 120
That's a lot.
students that opt for the ESL side. So if a student feels like they need some more grammar support, then ESL 100 is the best choice. If they feel like my grammar's fine, I can just go on to English 100, then that's up to them.
Yeah. All right.
So as I said, you mentioned our classes a little bit earlier. So our pre-college classes are approximately 8.5 contact hours per week, 4 to 5 days per week. As you mentioned, it's a couple of hours per day. If it's 4 days a week, and if it's 5 days a week, it's a little bit over an hour and a half per day. So it may seem like a lot, but again, we're an integrated skills program, so we don't have like a reading class and a writing class and a grammar class and a listening and speaking class. So actually, by combining them this way, we think it's a little bit more efficient and effective. And then because it's a pre-college classes, the grades are just credit or no credit. Well, we also have a credit plus. And then the course is repeatable for credit. Now, sometimes a student may place into a specific level, and for whatever reason, they may not make as much progress as necessary in that particular semester. And they can continue on into the next semester at the next level. I mean, at the same level. And because we have different themes, they wouldn't be getting the same basic content. They would be getting a different theme in a different semester, but they would be reviewing similar type of grammar points. And then our college class, ESL 100, it's a basic college class, which is 3 hours a week, 2 days a week with the regular grades of A through F. And then just a couple of last things in terms of support. Obviously, we're teaching students in the classes, but of course, students can avail themselves of faculty office hours. We have generous office hours for our students. If students can't come during the scheduled office hours, we have appointments where students can come in and get tutoring specifically for their weaknesses or things they want to work on. We also tap into the study hub, not directly, but I think Sean might talk a little bit more about that, but we have a study hub available. And then on the student services side, you know, we're not counselors, but we do that early advising for students, like when they're in the program, helping them think through where they might want to go in the college and things they might want to look at, other ESL courses that they might need to take and that kind of thing.
Do you find students maximizing office hours and these tutoring appointments?
It depends. It depends.
Yeah. Okay.
In the upper level, like in the advanced ESL class, more often, and in English 100, ESL 100 more often, because ESL 100. If a student has been through the ESL program, if they've taken any of our beginning, intermediate, or advanced classes, which are 2 hours a day, 4 days a week, when they go to ESL class, they feel how short that time is. An hour and 15 minutes twice a day, right? There's not enough time to cover all of this language stuff. Plus, it's not really a language class per se. It's more of a writing class. So ESL 100 students, I think, are more likely to use the office hours. But again, it depends on how comfortable the student is coming in and what they want to work on. Right. And I think that's part of our advising piece, right? Because, you know, we're not, as I said, we're not counselors, but we're in the classroom with the student every day. So we know what's going on with the student in terms of their language. And we can talk to them as a teacher because we know what's going on, right? And then get them to come to the office hours or to make an appointment for a little bit of extra tutoring.
Yeah, instructors definitely have more touch points with students, if anything.
Yeah. And then finally, we do tap into all of the other support services on the college. So all of our students even though the courses might be pre-college, they still go through new student orientation. They still get advising through either the Mitre Cambridge Center or through their program advisor. They can take advantage of the TRIO program, DSSO, et cetera, financial aid. So everything is available. We tap into all of those extended services available throughout the college.
Yeah.
As you folks know.
Do you get the feeling that sometimes students in the ESOL class don't feel that they can integrate with a lot of these services?
Part of it might be that they don't know what's available. So a lot of our students might be first in their families to go to college.
Yes.
So they may not really know. I mean, that was my case when I went to college. I know when I was the first in my family to go to college many years ago. I sort of charted my own way. I didn't really know everything that was available, and there's so much more available now for students. I mean, they have to go to NSO.
Yeah.
But the other stuff they may or may not really know. I mean, that's part of what we do as well. And our initial advising is to try to make students aware of these support services that are available, like go to see a program counselor, make an appointment with your program counselor. So we sort of try to hand them off in a sense as they get closer to leaving the ESL program.
Yeah. All right.
And that's pretty much it.
So, I mean, just real quickly, what is your background? What degree do you have, and where did you get it from?
Oh, I am originally from Rhode Island, and I got my BA in English at the University of Rhode Island with a minor in education, and then I taught in Japan for a while, and then I came here and got my master's degree at UH.
Nice.
And I've been working at KCC for the past, I don't know, 15 years maybe.
Lifer.
Longer than that, Tony. You've been there for over 20 years
now. Someone just outed you.
2001.
20, okay.
19 years.
Do the math.
Wait, so that means you got the pen, or you didn't get the pen? No, okay, you didn't get the pen. The pen with no ink. Okay, got it.
Not yet.